Every dollar I lent was brushed off as just family helping family. But when I finally asked for repayment, their reaction showed me something I'll never forget. You ever notice how the first time someone borrows money from you, it never feels like a big deal? That was how it started for me. A crumpled 20 handed over at a gas station. My dad had forgotten his wallet, again. We were standing next to his old pickup, the one that coughed like it was dying every time it started. He chuckled and said, "I'll pay you back next time, promise." I nodded, because that was just what you did. It was 20 bucks. No big deal, right? Next time never came. Then it was my brother, Jason. He was 17 and always broke. "Hey man, can you spot me for lunch? I'll Venmo you tonight." He never did. Eventually, I stopped asking. It felt petty to chase him down over $12. Then 15. Then 30. After a while, those little things piled up. A utility bill here, some groceries there. They always had a reason. Always had that tone like, "Come on, you know I'd help you if I could." But here's the thing, I never asked them to. I never needed to. Somehow, I just became the guy everyone turned to. It was not like I was rich. I worked hard. I kept my head down. I saved where I could. Never had designer clothes, never drove a fancy car. But I had stability. And apparently, in my family, that meant I had a responsibility. The first time I tried to say no, my mom made this face like I had kicked a dog. "You know your father is proud of how successful you've become," she said, like that meant I owed them something. And maybe I believed her. Maybe part of me wanted to. It was always phrased like a favor, just something to hold them over. They would say things like, "You know we're good for it," or "You're the reliable one." They made it sound like a compliment, but it never really felt like one. What it felt like was pressure. I told myself it was just how families worked. You help each other out. You do not count favors. You do not treat your dad like a debtor or your brother like a freeloader. You just help and trust they will be there when it counts. Except, they never were. That lesson did not come all at once. It came slowly, like rain soaking into concrete. You do not notice it at first. Then one day you realize everything underneath is starting to crack. I remember one Thanksgiving. Jason asked me for a loan to fix his radiator. "Just a few hundred," he said, "or the car'll be toast." I gave it to him. He said he'd pay it back by New Year's. That was 4 years ago. The car broke down anyway. I asked him about it once, lightly, trying not to sound accusatory. He laughed, said, "Man, I thought we were past keeping tabs like that." That was the moment I should have said something. Should have drawn a line. But I let it slide. Because deep down, I was afraid that saying no meant being cast out. Not from the family. From the illusion of what family was supposed to be. But I was starting to realize something uncomfortable. Maybe that illusion had never been real in the first place. And the worst was still ahead. I just did not know it yet. It did not take long for the asks to grow. What used to be just a few bucks started sounding a lot more like full-on emergencies. The first big one came from my dad. He called one night while I was still in the office. I was knee-deep in spreadsheets, trying to sort out a vendor billing issue. He did not ask how I was doing. Just dove straight in. His insurance had lapsed, and he needed help paying for a dental procedure. Root canal, I think it was. Something urgent. I asked how much. He cleared his throat and said, "About 800. 800. I remember staring at the phone for a second, wondering how we had leapt from $20 fill-ups to medical bills. But he sounded panicked, so I wired the money that night. No contract. No discussion. Just, I'll cover it. The next time, it was Jason again. His car got towed. He needed bail money for it. "Just until Friday," he said. I swear, man, I get paid Friday. It was always Friday. But when Friday came, his phone was conveniently off. Or his account was frozen. Or he had another emergency. Then came Uncle Ray. I had not heard from the guy in 3 years. He showed up out of nowhere, called me kiddo, and said he was in a tight spot. Needed help catching up on rent. I remember thinking, why me? But I already knew why. I was the one who said yes. Every single time. I started keeping a spreadsheet. Not to throw in anyone's face, just to keep track. Because it was getting hard to remember who owed what. Over 2,000 to Jason. Another 1,500 to Dad. A couple hundred here and there to cousins, a nephew, a guy who married into the family and acted like we were old pals. Altogether, I had given away over $9,000 in just until next week loans. And what did I get in return? Mostly silence. A few, "You're a lifesaver," texts that stopped coming the second I hit send on the money. Not once did someone come back and say, "Hey, I finally got back on my feet. Here's what I owe you." Not once. I tried to talk to my mom about it. Just gently brought it up. Asked if maybe people were leaning on me a little too much. She got real quiet. Then said, "Sweetheart, they're family. You're doing well, right? What's the harm in helping?" That hit me. Because I was doing well. But just barely. I was living paycheck to paycheck in a decent apartment, trying to build some kind of future. Saving for a down payment, maybe. Thinking about finally taking a real vacation. I was not rolling in it. I was surviving. But to them, I was the bank. The fallback. The one who would never say no. I started wondering what would happen if I did. Just once. Would they understand? Or would they turn on me? I was not ready to find out. Not yet. But the moment was coming. A moment I could not avoid. And it started with a phone call I never expected to get. It was a Tuesday morning when the call came through. I remember because I had just poured my first cup of coffee and sat down at my desk, ready to grind through a report due by noon. The phone buzzed, and I almost ignored it. The number was local, but unlisted. I answered anyway. It was my dad. His voice sounded different. Not angry, not panicked, just tired. Almost like he had already given up on convincing me before he started. He told me my Uncle George, his younger brother, had gotten sick. Real sick. Some kind of infection that spread fast. No insurance. Hospital stay. Bills piling up. He needs help, son. I already gave what I could, but it is not enough. I stayed quiet, staring at the steam rising off my coffee. Then he said it. I told him you'd help. Not asked. Told. And that was when it really hit me. I was not just the go-to anymore. I had become part of the plan. They were making promises in my name. Writing checks with money that was not theirs, expecting me to cash them without question. It was not even about emergencies anymore. It was just expected. Still, I asked how much. He said the hospital needed $3,000 up front just to keep treating George. Another 5 later, maybe more. He was vague on the details. I asked why no one had told me earlier. Why George had not called me himself. Dad sighed. He was embarrassed. You know how proud he is. I almost laughed. The man who once asked me for gas money during a barbecue was suddenly too proud? But I did it. Again. I sent the money. I told myself it was different this time. That it was life or death. That maybe this was the last time. But it never is it? After that, things got quiet. No one said thank you. No one checked in. Not even a message from George. The silence was louder than anything. A week later, I logged into my bank account to move some funds into savings, and I saw it. The overdraft warning. Not because of George, but because Jason had used my emergency card. The one I stupidly let him borrow once, just in case. He said he had shredded it months ago. The charge was for a new gaming console. $800. My phone buzzed again, right on cue. Jason. I let it ring. Then I got the text. Hey man, needed it for my mental health. You get it, right? That was it. That was the moment I felt something inside me crack. Not snap. Not explode. Just crack. Like a seam I had been patching for years finally split open. But I still had not reached the breaking point. No, that came later. When I asked for something back and saw who they really were. I waited a few days before I brought it up. Honestly, I wanted to calm down first. I wanted to believe it had all been some misunderstanding. Maybe Jason had meant to ask. Maybe the card charge was a mistake. Maybe there was some explanation that would make it all okay. But there wasn't. When I finally called him, he picked up like nothing was wrong. Said, hey bro. All casual, like we were just catching up over beers. I did not even waste time. I told him I saw the charge. Told him I wanted the money back. At first, he laughed. Actually laughed. Said something like, dude, are you serious? Like I had just asked him for a kidney or something. I told him yes. I was serious. I needed the money. He went quiet. Then came the excuses. Rent was due. Work was slow. He had not been feeling great lately. And besides, it is not like you are hurting for cash, right? That line. That damn line. Not like you're hurting. It came out of his mouth like a reflex. The same way someone might say, bless you after a sneeze. Thoughtless. Automatic. Like it was a fact of life that my money existed to patch their holes. I told him it did not matter if I was hurting or not. What mattered was respect. What mattered was the fact that I had helped everyone without ever demanding anything. And the one time I asked for something back, I was getting treated like I was the problem. Jason just sighed and said, all right, man. I'll figure it out. But I knew what that meant. I had heard it before. I hung up without saying goodbye. A few hours later, I texted my dad. Told him I wanted to talk about George. Asked if there had been any update. If he had gotten better. No reply. The next day, I got a message, not from Dad, but from Aunt Lisa, George's wife. She said George had gone home a week ago. She thanked me for helping. Said she hoped things were good with me and that she appreciated the support. That was all. Appreciated. Not, we'll repay you. Not, George wants to thank you himself. Just a soft little phrase, like the kind of thing you write in a sympathy card. And that was when the fog really started to clear. None of them had ever planned to pay me back. Not Jason. Not Dad. Not George. Not anyone. To them, it was not a loan. It was just mine to give. Because I was the good one. Because I had more. Because I had never said no. So why would I start now? But I had started. And they felt it. The silence that followed was not the usual kind. This one had weight. Like they were all waiting to see what I would do next. And they were not going to like the answer. It happened on a Thursday. I remember because it was raining hard. Those thick, punishing drops that make the whole sky look bruised. I was walking home from the train station, soaked through, when my phone buzzed with a notification I was not ready for. My company was downsizing. I was on the list. They called it a strategic restructuring. I called it what it was, getting fired. I stood there in the rain, numb, phone screen lighting up with corporate-sounding pity. Severance. Final check. HR contact info. The whole thing felt surreal. I had never been without a job. Not since I was 16 flipping burgers at a drive-thru. And now, just like that, I had nothing lined up. No safety net. And thanks to all the help I had given my family, not much in the bank either. By the time I made it home and peeled off my soaked clothes, the shock was wearing off. Panic was setting in. I gave myself a couple days to breathe. Applied for unemployment. Updated my resume. Started reaching out to old contacts. But the job market was tight. People were not calling back. So, for the first time in years, I did something I never thought I would have to do. I asked for help. I messaged Jason first. Kept it simple. Told him I was in between jobs and asked if he could float me a couple hundred to help with rent. He read it right away and left it on read. No reply. I waited 2 days. Still nothing. Next, I called Dad. Told him what happened. Tried to keep it light. Even made a joke about finally joining him in the laid-back lifestyle. But my voice cracked halfway through, and I could tell he heard it. There was a pause. Then he said, I wish I could help, son, but things are tight right now. I asked if he could just loan me a few hundred. Said I would pay him back the second I got back on my feet. He got real quiet. Then he said, you are a grown man. You will figure it out. Just like that. The same man who had taken thousands from me over the years without hesitation now could not be bothered to return the favor. Not even a fraction of it. I called 2 cousins. Texted an aunt. No one responded. No one. It was like they had all vanished. But deep down, I knew they had not. They were still around. Still watching my social media. Still living in the same homes I had helped them keep. Still driving cars I had contributed to fixing. I had been their lifeline for years. And now that I was the one sinking, they had all cut the cord. But I was not angry yet. Not fully. Not until what happened next. A week after the layoffs, Jason invited me to his daughter's birthday party. That part caught me off guard. After all the silence, after ignoring my message, suddenly I was back on the invite list. He even said, come early. We've got food, drinks. It'll be good to catch up. I almost didn't go. Part of me was still stewing. But I figured maybe it was his way of making things right. Maybe he felt guilty, and this was his peace offering. So I went. I showed up with a wrapped gift. Nothing expensive, just something thoughtful. A sketch pad and a new set of colored pencils. His daughter always loved to draw. The second I walked in, I felt out of place. Everyone was laughing, joking, acting like life was perfect. Like the last few weeks had not happened. I forced smiles, made small talk, and tried not to let the knot in my stomach show. I found Jason by the grill. He was flipping burgers, beer in hand, laughing like he was on a cooking show. I waited for a quiet moment and finally asked, did you see my message last week? He looked at me like I had just asked what day it was. Then he said something I will never forget. Oh yeah, I figured you'd handle it. You always do. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just that smug little grin like nothing had changed. Like I was still the same old dependable brother with a wallet full of miracles. I stared at him for a second, waiting for the punchline. But there wasn't one. He just shrugged and offered me a plate. That was when it clicked. clearer than ever. They did not forget. They did not ignore me by accident. They saw my message, heard my ask, understood what I was saying. They just did not care. Because to them, I was not a person. I was a resource, a convenience, a backup plan. They could celebrate on the money I used to lend, drink on the time I lost helping them, and then pretend none of it ever mattered when I finally needed something back. I sat through that party in silence, smiling through gritted teeth, clapping during the cake cutting, watching his daughter open gifts I probably funded without even knowing it. And then, just before I left, I made a decision. I would ask one last time, and I would do it in front of all of them. I waited until most of the guests had settled on the back porch, plates stacked with cake, drinks in hand, kids running around with balloons. Jason was lounging in a patio chair, his wife next to him, and across the table sat my dad, grinning like he was king of the cookout. I cleared my throat and stood by the table. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice even. "I want to talk about something," I said. Jason smirked. "Oh boy, here we go." I ignored it. "I've helped a lot of you over the years," I continued. "Rent, bills, cars, medical stuff. I never asked for much. I always figured it was family, and family helps family. But a week ago, I lost my job. I reached out, just for a little help, and not one of you showed up." Silence. Not even the kids were making noise. My dad set his drink down slowly. "We're not doing this here." I looked him straight in the eye. "Why not? You were happy to take help here. From me. So I'm asking one last time. Can anyone pay me back? Anything at all? Even part of it?" Jason laughed under his breath and leaned back. "You're really going to make this about money? At a kid's party?" I felt my jaw tighten. "It's not about the money. It's about what it meant. You all made me believe we were in this together. That I could count on you the way you counted on me." My dad shook his head. "This is not the time." That was when Jason said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You've always thought we owed you something, but you chose to help. No one forced you." And there it was. The truth. They never saw it as generosity, never thought of it as sacrifice. To them, it was just obligation. Like I had nothing better to do with my time and money. I looked around the table, at the man who raised me, at the brother I bailed out more times than I could count, at the cousins and in-laws who cheered when I picked up the check. And I saw it clear as day. They never saw me. Not really. I was not family to them. I was a convenience. Something in me broke in that moment. Not with fire, not with anger, but with cold, final clarity. I nodded. "Got it." And I walked out. But I was not done. Not yet. Because the next morning, I started making changes. The next morning, I opened my laptop and pulled up that spreadsheet, the one I had kept over the years. Names, dates, amounts. I stared at it for a long time, not out of regret, but because it finally made sense. There was no debt. Not really. Debt implies intent to repay. What I had given them was charity. Unwanted, unacknowledged charity. So I started crossing names off the list, not because they paid me back, but because I was done waiting. Done pretending the door was still open. I shut down the shared streaming accounts, changed the passwords to the food delivery apps, pulled my name off the family phone plan I had stupidly agreed to just for a few months. I called the bank and closed the emergency credit card Jason had used without permission. He found out a few hours later and sent me a string of angry texts. No apology, just blame. "You left us stranded. I had a bill to pay, man. That was cold. I guess I know where we stand now." Exactly. I didn't respond. Not to him. Not to any of them. Because they all came crawling in after that. Cousins who had gone radio silent for years started sending me friendly, just checking in messages. My aunt left a voicemail talking about how families go through rough patches and how I should not let a little tension tear us apart. Even my dad texted me 3 days later. "You made your point. Now grow up and stop being spiteful." Spiteful. That word stuck with me. To him, setting boundaries was spite. Saying no was cruelty. Taking back control of my own life was betrayal. And that is when I realized something big. None of them were ever going to change. Because why would they? They had built a system where I gave and they took. And the moment that system cracked, they turned on me. Like I had broken some sacred rule by finally looking out for myself. So I wrote one message. One final message. I sent it to the whole group chat. The same one they used to dump their emergencies on me like I was a customer service line. It said, "If your definition of family is someone who gives and gives while you take without thanks, then you were never my family to begin with. I'm done." Don't call. Don't text. Don't ask. Not one more dollar. Not one more minute. I hit send. Then I left the group. I turned my phone off and just sat there, breathing. For the first time in years, I felt something strange. Not guilt. Not fear. Peace. But it would not last long. Because someone was not ready to let me go. And they were about to cross a line I never thought they would. It happened 2 weeks after I sent that message. I was just starting to get back into a rhythm. Freelance gigs, budgeting tight, but surviving. It was not glamorous, but it was mine. Quiet mornings. Peaceful nights. No buzzing phone demanding to be answered. No sudden crises disguised as family emergencies. Then my landlord called. He said someone had stopped by asking questions. A man claiming to be my financial advisor. Said he was checking on missed obligations. I froze. There was no advisor. No missed obligations. Only one person I knew who would be bold and dumb enough to pull something like that. Jason. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Blocked. So I drove over. I did not tell him I was coming. I just got in my car and went. The moment I pulled up, I saw his new car in the driveway. Not fancy, but definitely new. Leather seats. Shiny wheels. Probably where some of my loans had gone. He opened the door with a smirk, like he had been waiting for me. You're real dramatic these days, he said. I thought we were just messing around. I asked him if he had sent someone to my apartment. His face barely twitched. He shrugged. Was just trying to make a point. You act like we're strangers now. I stared at him, speechless. My hands were clenched at my sides. You want to know the truth? He said. Nobody misses you. We just miss the convenience. You were useful. Now you're just angry. And there it was. He did not even try to deny it. Did not try to guilt me or sugarcoat it. He said it with that same smug little laugh he used when we were kids, after he'd break something of mine and blame it on the dog. You were useful. Not loved. Not appreciated. Useful. I nodded slowly, like I was trying to memorize his words. And then I walked away. I did not yell. I did not punch anything. I just turned and got back in my car. That night, I deleted every contact I had related to them. Blocked numbers. Removed emails. Wiped every photo and message thread. Years of memories, gone in minutes. And it felt like lifting a weight I never knew I was carrying. I sat alone in my apartment, lights off, music low. There was no one left to impress. No one to save. No one to drain me dry. Just me. And for the first time in my adult life, that was enough. But I knew what came next. They would come back. They always do. But this time, I would be ready. They came back just like I knew they would. It started with a message from my mom. Not a call, just a soft little text, written like nothing had ever happened. Hope you're doing okay. We miss you. Your dad isn't well. A hook, dressed in concern. I stared at it for a while, feeling that old guilt start to stir, that ache in my gut that used to pull me back in every time. But this time, I let it pass. 2 days later, a cousin reached out. Your brother's having a rough time. He didn't mean all that stuff. Can't you just talk to him? Funny, how they all found their voices now. No one had anything to say when I needed help. But now that the safety net was gone, suddenly, I mattered again. Then came the real test. Jason showed up at my door. I had not seen him in person since that last conversation, the one where he called me useful. He looked rough, hair a mess, shirt wrinkled. A fake smile slapped across his face like he still believed charm could fix this. Hey, he said, like we were still close. Can we talk? I did not answer, just leaned against the doorframe and waited. He shuffled his feet, eyes bouncing around the hallway. Look, man, I messed up. We all did. But family's family, right? We've always had each other's backs. That line again. Family is family. I took a deep breath. No, I said. We didn't. I had yours. You never had mine. He opened his mouth, probably ready to drop some half apology or excuse. But I stopped him. I needed help, Jason. Just once. One time. And you left me hanging. After everything I gave up for you, you left me in the cold. He looked like he wanted to argue, but there was nothing to say. Nothing that would change it. So what? He finally muttered. You're just going to cut everyone off? Forever? I am not cutting anyone off, I said. I am setting boundaries. And if that feels like a cut, that's not on me. He stood there for a second longer. Then he turned and walked away. No big scene. No final explosion. Just quiet footsteps down the hall. That was the last time I saw him. Since then, life has been simpler. Smaller, in a way, but not emptier. I found space again. For peace, for real friendships, for people who call just to say hi and not because they need something. The truth is, I do not regret helping them. What I regret is thinking that help guaranteed love. It didn't. Because love without respect is just control with a smile. And family? Family is not who shares your blood. Family is who shows up when it counts. So if you're the one always giving, if you're the one they only call when they need to be saved, if you've started wondering whether family loyalty is just a leash wrapped in guilt, then hear it from someone who learned the hard way. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to keep what is yours. You are allowed to say, no more. Because sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people closest to you. And sometimes, that is exactly what saves you.